And the recording has started. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. I'm on Twitter. You can find me as The Real Ted Hicks. And across from me, virtually, Danny Thompson from Beyond the Buzzer, from your favorite basketball website. No, it's not ESPN. From AroundAssociation.com. Danny, how you doing?
It's a beautiful night, Ted. Once again, being on late night, LNP podcast. What more do you want in life?
Man, who are you telling? It's this is the essence. You've always talked. I mean, we talked a million times, but you've always talked about doing a late night show, doing kind of like a wrap up type show.
Yep,
that's right up my alley. Dude, let's just talk. I don't know how long we have, but let's just talk radio. Let's talk radio, real terrestrial radio. Let's talk about the ESPN new lineup was announced earlier today. Well, at the time of this podcast, it was actually yesterday when it was announced. But just to get some early thoughts on, and we'll run through the different segments, different shows. But is there anything that could have matched Mike and Mike? No. Go Look and Wingo definitely didn't match it. I never really listened to the show. I don't know about you, but there's this new show with Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and who's the other person?
I can't. I don't want to mess his name up completely. I know who you're talking about. First name starts with a Z.
Zubin or Ruben?
Yeah, Zubin. I know he's the ESPN anchor. I do know that. For sports.
Okay.
So I do know that.
So it's interesting to say the least, right?
It's an interest. So for that show itself, the three of them together is going to be a 4-hour show.
Ugh.
It's 4 hours.
Ugh.
Okay. Now this has a chance to be very car crash like,
right?
Or it can be very, very interesting because Jay Williams, if you listen to enough NBA, Jay Williams is very versatile. Okay, he's one of the smarter guys you can find. Of course, he went to Duke, so he knows and he talks very well. If you've watched him on First Take a lot of times, and the other ESPN talk shows, he does have the ability to talk about sports.
Okay.
Now, the one person I wonder about is Keyshawn Johnson. Now, football-wise, Keyshawn knows football. I would love to see how he transitions into other sports. Because for players that played football transition to other sports, or even other athletes transition to different sports, has been interesting. Marcellus Wiley, for example, he transitioned by using Sports Nation.
Yes.
And now he turned to Fox. And
the smartest move for him. The smartest move for him, because I don't know, you know better than I do, that ESPN lineup is crowded.
It is. But it's crazy because you have two shows that are on for 4 hours apiece. At the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. Okay. you got the new morning show, which is from 6 to 10. Now, the real question is, they're being simulcast on ESPN2, I think, from 6 to 8.
That's weird. That's weird.
It's only going to be weird if we don't have video. If we could actually watch them, listen, if we can see the three of them together for 2 hours, I'm all for it. I'm just not big on seeing logos. When you watch Go Look and Wingo, even Mike and Mike, when they simulcast it was like you're watching ESPN radio on your screen, but you can't see them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was kind of annoying. But for me, if I'm able to see the three of them, we have ways now, Ted. Even with both of us doing, we're now transitioning into the TV side and multimedia side. You can put all of us in the same room, in the same area together.
Right.
So there should be no reason why this show should have non-visuals. I don't want to see visuals of highlights when they're talking about, your favorite player, LeBron James. They're showing Laker highlights. I don't want to see that on the screen. I want to see what they're actually thinking. Even First Take now has all three of them on split screen on the monitor. So that's my main concern. But it's an interesting mix. I'm not excited.
Um, so we're not paid by ESPN. Well,
Nope.
not yet, or Walt Disney or anything of the like.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a problem when you say a show starts from 6 to 8 on this channel and then what, transitions to another channel? Or it's just going to be 6 to 8 while it's running simultaneously on ESPN News?
I
Then
think
that's
so.
fine. Then that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, 6 to 8 on Zeus, and then 6 to 10 completely on ESPN News.
Okay, because I was just thinking 6 to 8 on one station, and then you have to
Change
take those viewers over virtually with you to the next channel, and you're going to lose them.
Yep.
Because you think of how many people actually have, ESPN2 versus ESPN News.
Correct.
So, but if it's on both of them, then all the best, because then it makes sense, because 6 to 8, because I guess at 8 o'clock they got to show Sports Centers.
While Get Up is on.
Right. While Get Up is on. And just that whole model, Danny, I just never understood, where you have shows competing against each other. You Get Up competing against Sports Center, competing against Go Look and Wingo.
Well, you got to think Sports Center is a staple.
Yes.
So it's not going to go anywhere. And really, to be honest with you, let's be honest, the best morning show isn't on ESPN, no matter how many shows they put on the air. The best morning show, Ted, I think we probably agree on this one, is still Good Morning Football.
Hands down. The best show, the best morning show. And they have it right, 7 to 10. That's perfect. 3-hour show. I just remember the years ago when we used to watch NFL AM, and the show would originate from LA. So we're watching a show at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's actually 3 a.m. in LA. Mm-hmm. And they would do maybe like the first 2 hours live, and then the remaining part of the show would be clips from the previous 2 hours. It was messy. And then they would close out the show with all of them live, and you're like, okay, this is a hot mess. But listen, Good Morning Football, nothing compared to that. Mm-mm. The personalities that they have, so smooth, so smart. Kay Adams, she's easy on the eyes.
And she knows her stuff. Nate is a superstar in the making. I mean, his personality, but Nate is the same way on the field as he is in the booth. So it's like they picked the right group together. Right. And you can tell, Ted, they have chemistry. They actually like each other. They work well together. That entire group.
Right.
And
Schrager and Kyle. Mm-hmm. Kyle Brandt and Schrager, let me tell you, I look at them, originally I said, there's Kate, there's Nate, and there's 2 bloggers. But, what's so funny is when they do their segments and they do their shtick, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's an awesome 3-hour show supported by the network. And at one point, I thought ESPN would have just licensed the show and brought it on over there. But,
it's real interesting how when they did the NFL draft, how they took so much of the NFL network programming and put it on the
Yes. I thought that interesting.
And it's interesting that we have 3 other sports that have their own networks and channels and don't do the same thing.
Sickening. And
it's crazy because NBA has its own channel on Sirius. And they have a morning show.
Oh, with Isola
and Scalabrini.
Yes.
Which is weird to me that show is not brought over. They're showing game highlights, like literally from midnight until 12.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I mean,
totally ridiculous.
MLB and Ted, that's your sport. You're telling me you can't get the You can't find a group of guys. They have a very good afternoon show with Kevin Millar and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't find a morning center person and two other baseball analysts to talk baseball. The same thing with the NHL. You can't find that and make a morning show out of it.
Come on. Each of those sports, they have the personalities. They just don't have the specific sports league isn't invested in really growing those brands.
Which is weird because NBA Network is right in the same building as Turner. You're telling me and they share people. They share the same folks on their different shows.
Right.
Ted, let's be honest. If NBA TV decided to do a morning show, let's just say, Ted, you grab Candace Parker on one side. You get, I don't know, you throw Dennis Scott on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And you go get a pivot person.
Yep.
They've got some, you can get Matt Weiner or some pinner person in the middle. You have access to every single NBA team and every NBA writer you can think of.
Yes. And they would be more than willing to do it. Come on. That's
3 hours.
3 hours. That 3 hours would really turn into 6 because it would get an immediate re-air.
Listen, you know what? If they can't find a pivot person, hey, listen, I'm in Charlotte. I'm only 3 hours away from. Listen, I don't mind doing a morning show. Trust me.
No, I know you don't. Hey, so you got the morning show. You got Golick and Wingo going. Well, Mike Golick, how does he draw the short straw?
Well, because he's the one that's had the humongous contract with ESPN afterwards. You got to think Greeny's the highest paid person on ESPN other than Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
So they got to use Greeny as much as possible.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that. And I'm pretty sure we'll get to that in a second. Greeny has to. They got to get their money's worth out of Greeny. I mean, and they tried with Golick, but the Wingo and Golick combination, it wasn't. It wasn't.
There was no energy from it. Yeah, I mean, and then when they shoehorned Junior in there, I was just like, I mean, I'm the last person that should talk about it because I really, for the most part, didn't really watch them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really watch them. I would turn to it. Yeah, I would turn to it occasionally. I was like, well, what do they have going on here? And I was just like, all right, I can't do it. I would remember times when I'm driving on the Belt Parkway or if I'm, heading somewhere, let's say I'm on I-95 heading somewhere and you can turn on, Mike and Mike. I just remember the one thing that was annoying about Mike and Mike for me, I'm only speaking for myself, was the amount of commercials and advertisements. I mean, that show was like a gold mine for ESPN.
It was. It was the one show. Ted, you got to think it's very difficult, Ted, nowadays, especially on terrestrial radio, to be able to get national sponsors, and they had them.
Yes,
they had more. They had more sponsors than a regular TV show.
Danny, I remember having a family in the car, and it was one morning, and I think we were driving to Maryland, and it just felt like they were doing 6-minute segments. They would be on for 6 minutes, and the next thing you know, there's another 5 or 6 minutes worth of commercials.
Or them plugging something on the air.
It was the day that Muhammad Ali passed away. And they had on that show, I remember, because, it was with Muhammad Ali, and they had Dick Ebersol called in, and several big people called in on the show. And I was like, only Mike and Mike could do something like this, where they had Costas called in, Dick Ebersol called in. They were talking about, giving real, stories about, hey, they were talking about Muhammad Ali at the Olympics and whether or not he was going to be able to light the torch and hold it at that, at that advanced stage of Parkinson's. And I got to tell you, it was a great show. I just remember a lot of commercials, man. I was like, geez. It's like once you got in, but like I said, when you see it was their cash cow. It was a cash cow.
Basically those advertisers paid their salary they both were making.
Yeah.
It justified the salary ESPN was paying both of them.
I just remember when it got to the point where, the bad blood and, Greeny was leaving and they were getting inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. And it was just, the ending was like awkward.
It's really interesting with partnerships that last as long as they did, or even going back to, Mad Dog and Russo Up in Your Way.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, the ending never works the way it does.
No, it doesn't. And this guys basically hated each other. I'm talking about Chris Mad Dog Russo and Francesa. They would, to the point where there was like, I don't know, a 3 or 4 week period where Russo wasn't even on the show, and they wouldn't do their segments together, or like, and it got to, where they said, when they would do the show, but they wouldn't talk outside of the segments. Those true pros, but I guess that's what happens, over the time, because you kind of outgrow those roles. You kind of outgrow them. But, hey, want to pivot quickly. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. We're talking to Danny Thompson from Beyond the Buzzer and AroundAssociation.com. So, Danny, probably the best show, one of the best shows on radio that is not about sports, Dan Lebitard and Stugatz, they get clipped for, they were originally for a 4-hour show, 1 hour local and a 3-hour national show. Local hour goes away. So it's a 3-hour national show. Now they get, truncated down to a 2-hour show. All of that content for a 2-hour show?
Something tells me they're going to get an hour back locally. They're beloved in the city of Miami. Those.
Yes.
If you look at about Rushmore Sports, it's Dwayne Wade, Dan Marino, the Marlins mascot, and Dan Lebitard. That's your Mount Rushmore of Miami sports. You gotta have the Marlins on there somewhere. So the only Marlin that's actually been around has been Billy the Marlin. So you gotta go with that. Otherwise, if you don't choose Billy the Marlin, you go with Stanley C. Panther. It's got to be a mascot somewhere. But Dan Lebitard is known. So I think you clip him an hour nationally and give him his hour back locally. I'm pretty sure the radio station in Miami, the main station in Miami, has no problem taking Lebitard back for an hour, because guess what? He gets an hour to rant about the Miami Heat and the Dolphins.
Yes.
It might draw more ratings than his national show.
Right.
So I have no problem with it, as long as he's getting his hour back in Miami.
Yeah. I could see this coming to a bitter divorce. I think there's 2 years left on his contract.
Yep.
Definitely see it coming to a bitter divorce. And he's going to say something, or...
He's been a hot water. He's been a hot water ESPN for the last year plus for things he said.
Right. But the big question is, what happens with his TV show?
That's the other part. People like his TV show. It's one of the things. It's one of the things that we can stomach at ESPN during the day, because they got too much going on anyway.
It's a staple. It's the staple of shows in the afternoon.
Between that and Around the Horn.
Yes. And PTI.
Yeah. And even though PTI, I think PTI is losing steam over the years.
It's an institution. Come on, man. It's PTI.
Yeah, it's an institution, but it does. PTI doesn't feel like PTI the first couple of years it came out.
It's been out 16 years.
I know, Ted. I'm not saying getting rid of it, but it's like when you say PTI, it's like, okay, you're not super excited about it, but you know what you're going to get with PTI.
You know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be solid.
Yeah, it's like that 300 hitter. It's like that hitter in your lineup in baseball that's going to bat 320.
Yes.
He's good for 20. He's good for 30 home runs, 110 RBIs, bat 300, strikes out under 100 times. You know what you're getting.
You know what you're getting.
A perennial all-star every year.
You're getting a solid 21, 22-minute show a day.
Yeah.
You're
And
not
it's
getting
very
anything
well put.
more. Yeah. So then it gets a little dicey because really didn't watch the Your Take First Take or stuff like that, which really made no sense to me. So you got Greenberg for 2 hours.
I listen.
He never has a controversial take.
He's just there. It's just that for me, I've got to watch him for 3 hours in the first take in the morning to turn right back around and hear his same commentary for 2 additional hours. At least Stephen A. Smith, he's entertaining. He's loud.
Yeah.
His takes might not be nowhere near the ballpark. And I love Stephen A., by the way. His takes will make you think about things, but at least it's energy. I just feel like Green's show is going to be bland because he just comes off as that person when you listen to him.
He doesn't want to rock the boat. He doesn't. Of course, he's not talking about anything political. Of course, he's not going to talk about anything political. He's not going to talk about anything that's cutting edge. He's not going to talk about anything that's questionable. Anything that might require a player like clapping back at him. He's not going to talk about anything. Anything that claps back at a player that's edgy. No, he's going to give you the Mike Greenberg take, which is right down the middle. Hey, I don't know if you like vanilla ice cream, but if you don't, you can go for chocolate. And if you don't, you can go for strawberry. And you're like, what the?
It's the NBC News of sports talk radio. Basically, he's not CNN. He's not Fox.
Right. Correct.
He is somewhere
correct. He's somewhere in the middle. I mean, you could tell he's leaning left, but he's like, I don't want to reveal my hand totally.
Exactly.
Something that's intriguing for me is Max Kellerman on the radio. I love this idea.
Especially since the fact of he's going over topics he talked on First Take, but he's also going into boxing, which is his lane.
Yes.
That's what I'm excited about.
The best thing that they did for Max was once HBO announced that they were getting out of boxing, I'm still scratching my head 2 years later, after the storied past of HBO Sports in boxing. The first thing they did was, okay, Max, we're going to move you over here and you're going to be our guy. But Max, for 2 hours, talking boxing and giving you his extended takes. All right, I can go for it.
I think this is a show Chris Mannix wish he would have had a long time ago.
Yes. Let me tell you, I was always, and I know you are from his basketball side. I used to listen to Chris Mannix on NBC Sports Radio. I thought it was a great show.
His boxing takes were phenomenal.
Yes. This is what Chris Mannix.
They took it from him, so.
That whole thing was just an utter train wreck, and it was just like, here's how not to do business.
Yes.
Here's how not to do it. Chris, to me, having a Chris Mannix, I think, you know what? I hate to say this, but Max Kellerman, Chris Mannix, you could slide Chris Mannix into that 2 hour slot. And I think he would rock it.
The only thing is that if it depends on what kind of takes he's doing. Now, Max Kellerman's case, because he's able, and he's been basically breeding the chops of all different sports and literally going back and forth with Stephen A. on a regular basis and on holding his own, if not taking Stephen A. down in a lot of different arguments.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he's expounding on stuff they talk about during their regular show, I think it's easy for him. It's easy money. It should be very entertaining.
So you don't think he can deal with like an off the cuff hot take?
He could, because he's used to it now.
Okay.
If this would have been after the transition after HBO, I think he would have been in over his head.
Okay. So, once again, this is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents, or ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. We're here with Danny Thompson from Beyond the Buzzer and AroundTheAssociation.com and the 3-Point Conversion and a whole host of other outlets that we'll get to. Spain and Fitz, it doesn't move the needle for me because I think we already saw this. This is like take two.
Where's Bomani Jones and all this? Where's Bomani Jones' show?
Come on.
They just gave him a new deal, ESPN.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with all these people.
Well, I think Bomani is more advanced version of Dan Le Batard.
Yeah.
Because Bomani Jones, I was having a conversation with a couple of writer friends of mine. I believe that Bomani Jones might be the most well-rounded journalist in the game right now.
Okay.
Because on top of being a guy who can talk sports, he can talk music, he can talk pop culture, he can talk politics. There's very few people that can step into all those different realms and rock it everywhere. I mean, listen, Bomani Jones went on Will Cain's show and was talking social injustice
and destroyed
and everything. It did it with probably a smile on his face.
Yeah.
But then, if you want to talk music with Bomani Jones, he knows it. Sports, easy for him. Politics, we know what he can do. So, Fitz in Spain, I guess I'll be watching TV.
I mean, that's the 7 and 9. I think he would have slid so smoothly into a 7 and 9 show.
He had before.
That's like the Evening Jones. You know, come on, man. I mean, it's tailor made for him. So 4 p.m.
That's it. We skipped the whole 4 o'clock.
Yes, yeah. So 4 o'clock, 4 to 7, which is something for the younger fans, because I think a lot of these shows are for, you know, the older type fans, but I think something for the millennials could be Chinny and Golick Jr.
Yep, this is the show I'm actually the most excited about. If you're watching up ESPN, Chinny is one of the rising stars, a dual threat because, of course, she plays basketball, not just plays basketball. She is one of the top, I'd say, one of the top 5 to 7 players in the entire WNBA right now. She has a great personality. She's very well educated, very well spoken. She's an all-around talent. And to go with Mike Golick Jr., who's talented in his own way, this is a drive time show. They're going over everything that's going to happen the night in sports. And that sounds exciting enough as it is. I would love. I really want to see. I want to see how she does, because she does anything like she does on television. This is a home run. This is the best show on the entire day.
It's a show that it's laid out on a platter for them,
because
everyone has beaten up all the hot takes. That's been beaten to the ground by that point, and then you can get there and you get to set the table for the evening show. I mean, the evening, portfolio of games that are going to happen that night. What was I going to say to you? I think they teamed up before. They've worked before together.
I think so.
So we talked 7 and 9. So I got a question. I used to listen from 7 to 9. Maybe I used to listen. At one point, J&J used to be on from 7 to 9. Jalen and Jacoby. So I know at one point they stopped doing this show and they went, I knew they were doing the TV show, which was different from the radio show, which was different from the podcast. So my question to you is, I guess they still stay in that half an hour show.
Yep.
And doing, I guess, an enhanced podcast.
Yep. And because Jalen's everywhere else on the network. So yeah,
is he still on Get Up with Greeny?
He makes he's on there. He's on there a good bit. So he's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Yeah, he is. And then Freddie Coleman who goes untouched with
And as he should.
4 hours.
Freddie Fitzsimmons shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been touched. It's perfectly fine.
Untouched. It's perfect
Mm-hmm.
for overnight. Before we let you get on out of here, Danny, we got to talk a little COVID. We got to talk. We got to talk COVID. We could talk sports. We could talk education. Just to get your take, because you previously lived in Florida, that hotbed, COVID central down there. Danny, your thoughts on children returning to school in the fall, whether it's August or whether it's September?
To me, it just shows that school is not school. It's glorified babysitting at this point. It's just basically being glorified babysitting so that parents can be forced to go back to work because, of course, no one wants to cut stimulus checks and give out extra money. That's just what it is. Because they're talking about spacing the kids in the classroom. In Florida, it's full-fledged school. Now, if it's in some places where it's like the kids go one day and then another set of kids go the next day, that's completely different.
Yes.
Your virtual school some days and you're in the classroom some days.
So wait, Florida is 5 days a week?
As of now, it's 5 days a week. They're opening August 12th, full throttle. And it's like there's 6,000 to 7,000, maybe 10,000 up to 10,000 cases a day of COVID still running rapid. And they're opening up school.
True level of disconnection. That's the textbook definition of being disconnected.
I think it's more disrespectful than disconnection, because you're not really respecting the fact that these teachers have to go. You're exposing kids potentially to COVID. What happens if one of these teachers or one of the administrators have COVID?
Right.
A child gets affected by it. What happens if a child at home who has a parent who has COVID?
Right.
And they expose, because kids don't really know what COVID is. They don't know how the body, and they just pass it asymptomatically. They shouldn't have to be in school. The same reason why, let's be honest, that professional sports should not go back until 2021.
Yes.
I feel, I've said this, and people think I'm all pro NBA. I love basketball, but it's not safe. But I understand why they have to go back. There's television money. There's contracts. There's the CBA. There's so many things that go along with, being a part of the NBA, that if they don't go back, it damages things. Right. So it's frustrating, but it's just weird. I mean, it's sad to see the kids have to go back, and that's what's going to happen across the country, because if Florida goes back and everything, quote unquote, runs smoothly, they're going to make sure that every other place in the country goes back at some point in time.
Right. Northeast is looking at a hybrid approach, but we're starting to have a few of the larger schools that are saying, "Hey, we're going virtual for the fall semester." I've seen other schools state, "Hey, we're going to be in session for the fall, but we're going to be virtual in the spring." So what do they know that we don't know? That is just going to be an S show or something like that. I've talked with you offline about my daughter's attending college in the fall, and we go back and forth, Danny, over this. It's interesting. I think that's a key word for tonight's pod. It's very interesting, because I said to her tonight, we were eating dinner, and I said, "So I'm going to drop you off in August, and I'll be back in September to pick you up." And it was just like dead silence, dead air.
Sounds about right. I mean, it's like if you go to the Vegas odds, I wonder if the odds are better on Kanye West winning the presidency or school shutting down before Halloween.
Yeah. I would go for the latter. I'm not touching Kanye 2020. Yeah.
The last thing of Kanye's album I got was College Dropout.
I downloaded the Jesus is King. Well,
yeah, I did. I listened to Jesus King.
yeah. I mean, it's different. Like when we used to say, oh, we used to buy albums. Now it's like, you subscribe to Apple Music or Spotify, and it's, the album is there
Right
for
there.
you to listen, to stream.
Mm-hmm.
So with sports, I said to you a while ago, maybe we talked about this maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I think it was no, it wasn't pre-COVID. It was post-COVID, but pre-shutdowns.
Mm-hmm.
No. It was post-shutdowns. It was right about the time they were shutting down, and we were talking, and I said to you, I think you said to me, Ted, are you excited about sports coming back? And I was like, no, because they're dealing with something they can't deal with. They're making assumptions. I don't see any scientists are amongst them. I see just billionaires. Now, granted, they can hire scientists, but Danny, once again, an utter mess. I mean, if we just talk NBA,
mm-hmm.
an utter mess.
I mean, you have so many players pulling out because of COVID. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets, in your home neck of the woods, right. They're probably having tryouts when they get to Orlando to figure out who's going to fill the rest of the roster spots. I mean, today, yesterday, since we taping, a day after, I mean, they've lost Spencer Dinwiddie and Taurean Prince already.
Right.
Dinwiddie, Spencer tested positive twice.
Right.
And so he got a second positive test, so he's not going anywhere.
And if he wanted to try again, wouldn't he have to take the test and test negative 6 times?
Something to that magnitude. And also, he's got to wait protocol once he gets to Florida for 2 weeks.
Whew. So you wait for 2 weeks, and then you test 6 times. That's like in 6 consecutive days? Or is like, how does that work?
It's periodic. I know it's 6 times over the 2-week period, but remember, he's got to be cleared. And then he's got to fly, and then he's got to be incubated in Florida for 2 weeks. So essentially, if Spencer Dinwiddie were to get cleared, he'd be around more likely for either the end of the 8-game season, or if the Nets survive, he'll be ready for the playoffs with no prep time.
Nah, not worth it.
Not worth it. If you look at the Nets, they're already down. Like I said, they're down Dinwiddie, they're down Prince, they're down
like 6 players.
They're down Jordan. They're down Chandler. Of course, we know Kyrie. Of course, we know Kevin Durant. Nick Claxton's out. It's like half the roster is gone.
It's gone.
And the sad part is they'll still make the playoffs because the Washington Wizards, no Bradley Beal, no Davis Bertans, no John Wall.
Right. But they're only going to make it to get bounced.
Well, here's the question. If the Orlando Magic somehow can play, the Magic end up with 7. And then the winner of that Nets and Wizards, whatever team is not worse than the other one, will end up meeting Giannis and be eaten in the first round.
So how are they going to do the seeding this year? Are they still doing 1 versus 8, or are they going to do?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So how it works is in the Eastern Conference, there's only 3 possible scenarios. All right, Washington would have to get within 4 games of the final playoff spot to force a 1-game playoff for whoever finishes between 7 and 8. So Orlando and Brooklyn are the only teams that could be 7 and 8. Nobody else can clinch. Orlando and Brooklyn cannot get to number 6 either. Now everybody else in the East is fighting for 2 through 6 because nobody's catching Milwaukee.
Right.
All right. Out west, it's a little bit wilder. So as long as the teams that are not considered number 8 finish within 4 games, we are now creating 1-game playoffs, Major League Baseball style. And it could be more than 1 team.
Okay.
So what would happen is potentially they could even drag the 7 seed into this, depending on how many teams are qualified for that final playoff spot. Now, one thing I would love to see the NBA do is adopt what the NHL did. Sounds familiar. The NBA is always adopting stuff from hockey anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The NHL has already conducted its lottery already. The question is, how did they do the lottery when you got teams fighting in the playoffs? They took the non-playoff teams along with one set of balls for a team that's going to end up going to wherever pod they go to. They drew the first set of numbers from 1 through 7, and they slotted the teams. When the teams are eliminated, there then will be reslotted based on record.
Mm-hmm.
The team with the worst record will end up with the pick ball that ended up in the top 7. Long story short, for those keeping track at home, one of the teams that made the playoffs or going to attempt to make the playoffs won the lottery. So one of those teams will have a chance to be the number 1 overall pick. The rest of the teams were, they drew the top 3 numbers, and then everybody else is slid by record. So what happens is all those teams who will miss the playoffs, there'll be a second lottery. Whoever wins that lottery will end up with the number 1 pick in the draft. Why can't the NBA do that?
Yeah, really simple. We sat around and watched baseball, MLB, PA bicker back and forth over money, over amount of days, games, universal DH, this, that, back and forth, prorated salaries. How come it seems like everything with the NHL has been done behind closed doors, and NHLPA and NHL are in lockstep? Are they like the model organization, or they see the big prize? I mean, the planning for them to be in pods in Toronto and Edmonton, outside of the U.S., outside of COVID Central, and just, knowing that the CBA extension, the TV rights deal is coming up. It seems like NHL is on the come up.
Well, we'll see. The one thing about the NHL is that their players and owners are on the same path, because guess what? Even if they had labor issues, none of the major networks are covering it. ESPN doesn't talk hockey.
Right.
Fox doesn't talk hockey. They'll talk playoff hockey.
Right.
But that's what get buried with the fact that there'll be 5 NBA games per day going on.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a UFC fight. So there's plenty of ways to get ESPN undistracted, but I just think that, they're the perfect group. They're lockstep, like you said, with one another. They know what they need to do to make themselves successful. So, I love the NHL for that. And they're going to a place where it's safe. Edmonton, Toronto are 2 of the bigger cities in Canada, and Toronto's one of the bigger cities in the world. But they have COVID under control.
Right.
Bravo to them.
Don't really want to touch baseball too much. I really don't. Slightly jaded right now. Former super fan. We're gonna wait and see, because I don't see this season finishing. I see it shutting down. Maybe September.
I'm thinking the NBA is going in September. I see hockey around the same time frame, probably.
What about MLB?
I mean, I think everything gets shut down between end of August, early September.
Okay.
Everything. And I think NFL is getting canceled. I don't think college football will be the first one to come back, and I think it'll be 2021 conference games only.
So today I want to ask this final question of you. It's a series of questions. The Colin Kaepernick related. Colin Kaepernick sent out a tweet during the July 4th holiday, referencing about the social unrest and everything that's happening now. Jim Trotter was on NFL Network today, and on what show is that? In the NFL Now show, Jim Trotter was on it, and he said there was a team that was seriously considering Colin Kaepernick, But when they saw his tweet over the weekend, they were at the point where they're kind of skittish now because that executive said that teams are weary of Kaepernick because of heat like that, because of the tweets and things that he would have to say and all the above. My question to you is, do you think that's all hogwash from these executives? Because me personally, Danny, I don't see him playing another down in the NFL at all. Here's my hot take. He'll continue to cut deals with ESPN, Walt Disney, and Netflix on, his high school years and his docuseries and everything else like that. I could see Colin Kaepernick hired within the NFL as the chief diversity officer. I don't see him going back on the field because it's been a long, period of time where he wasn't playing competitive sports. And I think partially because, you got these billionaire owners that are like, let's deal with him, but let's not deal with him. I don't think anyone has the kahunas enough to take him on their team. What's your thoughts?
He'll get a job. I think that otherwise, if he doesn't get a job, someone's going to give him a workout and then cut him at the very end. I think he will get a workout. The thing is, I think it's going to take an injury around the league for it to happen. I don't think he's on an opening day roster, though.
Okay.
Somebody's going to get hurt. It happens in football. It's going to be even more high likelihood with this shortened training camp, shortened off season, and everybody rushing to play week 1. If the season goes full throttle, I expect Colin Kaepernick to find a job probably about mid-season.
Okay. As a backup, as a starter?
It'll be a backup with a chance for him to prove himself.
Okay.
Because some teams going to need a quarterback, and that's the reason why they'll get capped.
Okay. I respect your comments and your thoughts on it. I just knowing the NFL and the pettiness and knowing how these billionaires see their toys.
But remember, billionaires will make a whole bunch of money if Kaepernick is signed. Whatever billionaire decides to take that risk, they might lose part of their fan base, but they'll gain a whole new one.
I mean, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys.
He'll also sell tickets too.
Okay.
Then that team will also have every single bit of media attention and media coverage that you're going to possibly find. Listen, if Baker Mayfield gets off to a bad start and gets hurt, who doesn't think Colin Kaepernick can go into Cleveland with that offense and potentially get them to the playoffs, if not further, even deeper into a playoff run?
Okay. Last item, NFL item, is Pat Mahomes hit the jackpot.
Mm-hmm. He won Powerball.
Tom Pelissero sent a screenshot on Twitter of the years, of the money, of the incentives, how it's broken down. Masterful contract. They took care of their player. Do you foresee in the next 5 years anyone getting to his level of contract? Do you see, Dak Prescott or
No.
Sam Darnold or any of these younger guys getting a contract similar to that?
I think Watson. I don't think in the next quarterback class, talking to Deshaun Watson or Dak Prescott, neither one hits $300 million. Because number one, I don't think any of these quarterbacks take a 10-year deal in the first place, or any team is going to be willing to take a 10-year risk on a quarterback.
So here's what I want to know from you, because you know this type of stuff. When you take these long-term type deals, tell me this much. Are they guaranteed a specific amount of the salary cap? Because, the salary cap is going to shoot
And that
So,
was the question. That was the question with Mahomes' deal, and Mahomes' deal is not salary cap based.
mm,
It's a salary. So it's not. That's the whole reason. When we first saw a contract, that means he must be getting a certain percentage of the cap every year going forward. It wasn't in the team's best interest to do that. That way, the Chiefs would not be hamstrung when it comes to dealing with Chris Jones and Travis Kelce later on. So no, they did it. They did it the right way. But as far as any of the new quarterbacks coming, listen, there's only one quarterback that has the type of talent to potentially force a big contract, but he's got to prove it, and that's Kyler Murray in Arizona. They've
mm,
given Kyler Murray weapons. Kyler Murray is Russell Wilson light. Okay.
okay.
He can move, he's exciting. The thing is, Arizona has to win. Murray, because they've given him the targets: DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Kenyon Drake. They've got weapons everywhere. If Murray puts up numbers with the ability to run and pass, he might be that quarterback that potentially could hit the $300 million mark. But no
Mm,
quarterback I can see in the foreseeable future takes $300 million because I don't think a contract's going to be long enough. I still think Deshaun Watson will sign 7 years, about $280 million, maybe 310 with guarantees. And I think it's the Dallas Cowboys that does it because unless Prescott gets into the Super Bowl, I think Jerry remembers every reason why that Dak Prescott turned that money down. And if Deshaun Watson's available, Deshaun Watson's an upgrade over Dak Prescott any day of the week.
okay. And when could he sign? When can?
Everybody's next offseason.
And you think the Texans wouldn't franchise him?
Listen, I don't care if you franchise him or not. You give up a first round pick for Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
Whatever 1 to 2 first round picks it is, you give it up.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if your team is on the brink of making the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because
Got it.
if Dallas had Deshaun Watson, they'd be the favorites in the NFC right now.
Yes. I mean, clearly, I don't see them. I mean, I see them as not having any true faith, long-term faith with Dak Prescott. Clearly, it screams it when you just say, "Hey, take this 1 year and we'll kick the can." You know, when you're playing kick the can, that's one thing. When you're giving the guy a long-term deal with all the weapons around him and everything, and you have a GM that's able to frame a contract so that they have the flexibility, that's something else. So Danny, where can we find your work? Where can we find your various shows? All the different things that you do?
All right. So thanks again, once again, Ted, for being on the show tonight, or the morning, wherever we wanted. This actually really is late night parents tonight.
Yeah, it
So,
really is.
the late night parents show as you see in the corner. Follow me on Twitter at Danny number 3. That's DANNY number 3 Thompson on Twitter. There's also Beyond the Buzzer, which is Monday and Thursday nights for myself and the student of the game, Kyle Nash, on Zingo Television Channel 198, which is I-95 Sports and Entertainment. We're there on Mondays and Wednesdays. My show with Deshaun Tate, which is called Talking Hoops, which is a basketball-related show, is on Tuesdays at 9 p.m., also on the same channel. You can also watch the Top Tens with me and my main man, Mr. Controversy, Raphael Haynes, on Sunday nights on Facebook. You can read my work on three-point conversion as well as around the association. And there's also, I'm just going to break it here, NBA Tonight, starting on July 30th, 11:30 Eastern, 30 minutes, going over everything in the bubble.
This is a nightly show?
It'll be a nightly show throughout the entire bubble. 30 minutes going over what you see in the bubble all day long. Because
you're breaking it here. And
Yep.
and I can't release the video to this. This is an audio only, so this is awesome. This is just awesome.
It's because there's up to 5 games a day. And Ted, a lot of us like ourselves, we work throughout the day.
Yes.
NBA games are going on at 2:00 in the afternoon. It is basically March Madness for 16 days in a row. So why not have ability to watch and go over games in 30 minutes?
Hey, just answer this one question for me, NBA related. So They're going to be doing this in the bubble. How many courts are they going to be playing on?
3 different courts.
Okay,
They have,
so some of the games could be simultaneously happening?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Three courts. Two of them are set for national TV already with national TV courts and everything. I think one will be set for TNT. The other will be set for ESPN. That way, those crews will always be there. And the third set will be. I'm assuming it's going to be NBA TV among locals and everything else.
So what do the RSNs do?
The RSNs will probably have. They'll have the feed and just have their announcers probably. I'm not sure if the team announcers are coming to the bubble. I know for a fact the Magic's all their games will be played and shown on Fox Sports Florida. So one would assume that the rest of the TV networks will just get the feed, have their broadcasters go over it and watch it live. The same they would everything with Korean League baseball on ESPN.
Gotcha. So you're gonna do during this bubble, during the 16 nights, you're gonna do 16 simultaneous shows.
We're looking at 16
consecutive shows.
That's what it's looking like.
You by yourself,
barring injury, we're gonna go 16 consecutive nights in a row.
So this is something that's going to be Facebook Live, YouTube.
It's going to be.
How do we watch it?
It's going to be on Zingo TV on I-95 Sports at 11. Also,
I didn't know that.
Yep, it's going to be on I-95 Sports. It's also going to be Zingo TV. It will be also available on YouTube as well too. The formal announcement will be made sometime the first part of next week. I'm still working out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. I also got to figure out which of the potential guests will be in Orlando, because a lot of the media folks have not made decisions yet on whether they're going to be in Orlando. I know ESPN folks are down there. I'm not sure about a lot of the local people because the memo came out for the folks that are not staying in the quarantine, and it ain't pretty. Like you got to get tested twice for COVID, and it comes out of your pocket. It's $140 per test, and you got to pass it in order to get in. You also got to purchase a hotel on Disney property. No way. On top of that, there's no access to players. All interviews will be done virtually because you are not technically a level 1, which means you're not technically in the bubble. So, yeah, we'll be doing this from home. Let's just say that.
Okay.
We're not live in location Orlando. I'll tell you that right now. But we're also going to have we're taking live questions on the show air. Like I said, you'll be able to see questions on the Facebook side of things. It's a brand new project. It's something. Hey, listen, sports has now become sports. This is the best way we're going to do it.
This is really cool. Zingo TV, best way to contact. I mean, best way to access Zingo TV, is it through the web or
you can go through the web. You can go through the app, the Zingo TV app, or go online. You can add it to pretty much every single device possible. You have Roku, you have I think the Fire Stick, you have Apple TV. As long as you can download the app, sign up. It's free. It's got great content. You can also find all the shows, and including Late Night Parents and some nights over on Blackjack Television. By the way, I heard pretty good show over there. A guy named Ted Hicks does a pretty good show over there. But yeah, we're debuting the show on July 30th. It's going to be fun because the first night is Pelicans and Zion in the first game against the Jazz, and then you have the late game of LA versus LA, LeBron versus Kawhi in the bubble. Why it doesn't get any better.
Gotcha. Danny, I want to thank you again for joining the show, and I'm sure we're going to be speaking. Thanks again.
As always, thanks, Ted.